Thank you so much for meeting with me today, Alex.
Of
Um,
course.
to get us started, I kind of just want to know, so you focused on illustration in your BFA, and I'm kind of curious on why you chose illustration.
Um, the short answer is because I'm like a giant dork and have been my whole life. So
Okay.
like as a little kid, I wanted to make comics, and would like, obsessively copy them and draw the like manuals from my video games and stuff. So, and that's still like a huge inspiration for me, like all that stuff. So I think I'm one of those like insufferable wieners that like knew what he wanted to do since he was 6. And I
Yeah,
like am doing some of it, which like is like the most gratifying thing in the world. Like I really think 6-year-old Alex would be stoked about some of it.
totally. Yeah, and I wonder like how did you go from illustration? Because I know you still do that as well, but you're
Mhm.
doing a lot of collage work. So where did that start?
Um, so I was into a lot of illustrators that had like a color element in their stuff. It's like Ralph Steadman, and like God, Jake Bannon was like a big deal to me when I was a kid because of how old I am. And so like that work as illustration made a lot of sense to me. And then like doing art history stuff and learning about like Rauschenberg and Max Ernst, like there's still Rauschenberg, maybe not, but Ernst is making like narrative images, you know? So it
Mhm.
felt not different from what I wanted to do. And I was like sort of slowly introducing it to my process. And eventually I think I just realized that I really enjoy the collage part. And
Mhm.
sometimes I'd be like almost dreading the next step. Like I would make the collage and then be like, all right, now I have to like, add a whole bunch of stuff basically just so I don't feel bad about it. And
Mhm.
like, maybe when I was like embarrassingly far out of college was like, I can just do the part I like.
Yeah,
And like, I think the images look good.
yeah.
uh, and so that became, I don't know, it's like a really freeing thing. I
Mm,
feel like collage in general can be like a really open medium. Like it just feels like
yeah,
there's so much you can do.
totally.
And I still draw and stuff, but
Sure.
it's nice to not feel like that's my boss and
Yes.
collage is my weekend, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. A lot of people were wondering about your process with collage and how many layers you use and just kind of how the process goes.
I start in almost all of them start in Photoshop.
Okay.
So it's like a lot more like my illustration process.
Hmm.
So I'm kind of composing everything in there and like adjusting colors and everything. And I even like try to sort of cook in like trompe l'oeil shadows to like
Hmm.
really confuse everybody.
Yeah.
And then I'll print out. Usually, it's unfortunately at the moment dependent on how like thick of a shadow box I can get, but it's around 6 layers. I feel like is maxing out like what I can fit into a frame.
Hmm.
So print out 6 separate layers, um, hand cut each one of those, and then layer them. But at all of these like steps, there's like a chance for me to kind of like reassess it. Like I can cut it differently than I planned, or I could like change the order, um, which kind of collage feeling that I want.
Hmm.
Um, so then after that, it's like I put spacers in between each layer, so there's like a physical depth, and then seal it all in like a altered shadow box frame.
Hmm.
The magic of it is like seeing a lot of collage in your life, and usually I think the depth is just the part that's like confusing to people because there's the digital part, the like composed in the image I'm trying to convey depth, and then there's literal depth, and to
Right.
like have those sometimes even like at odds with each other, I think is like cool and confusing.
Yeah.
So if there's like a shadow I put in the image, but then you see it in light that casts a different shadow, it can be really jarring in a way that I think is exciting, and hopefully doesn't just make people feel sick.
Have you worked with like larger spaces in which that hollowness is bigger?
Yes.
Okay.
Part of the issue with that, if I was like smarter, I think I could explain this like mathematically better.
Sure.
But like when you see 5 layers in a small space, right? Like it looks so deep. But if you see the same amount in a wider space, it's like your brain is processing it differently and it looks like it's not that deep.
Sure.
So a lot of it is I would almost rather have like a few concentrated areas where you can really get lost in like what's going on
Yeah.
as opposed to like one huge opening because then it almost doesn't read like or it's
Mhm.
not as exciting, maybe
Yeah.
just to me. I want
Totally.
it to feel like a weird little like hiding space.
Yeah. That
Um,
makes
but
perfect
the times I've gotten to work really big, it's kind of like an excuse to maybe cut like more intricate things. So like the more like flowery or like leaf stuff.
sense.
And then like the excitement hopefully is in like looking at the actual like cutting or
Mhm.
like the spaces that those make.
Right.
But that's, I think, getting bigger, again, the dream, if I have infinite budget and space, is to make like really enormous, really deep and like wide. Then it's like I can get as weird as I want to.
Yeah. I know in your artist statement, you say that you're exploring the mystery and fear associated with the body's inner processes. So if you could talk more about that.
Yeah. I'm a, well, yeah, I guess a pretty neurotic person, but specifically like a hypochondriac.
Mhm.
It's something I'm working on, but it's like I'm always sort of like afraid of what's happening inside my body while I can't see it.
Mm.
Um, I had a surprise, like I had a growth spurt that went into a curve in my back. So I
Mm.
had scoliosis, but then it got like really bad all of a sudden. So I went to the doctor kind of like thinking everything would be fine and found out I had to have this like, pretty traumatic surgery. So I think like it feels good or like cathartic, I guess, to be in control of like what's inside of a body.
Mhm.
Um, I get a little self-conscious talking about this stuff because it's my work is so much about me. I
Sure.
just feel very, very like selfish.
Mhm.
um, but yeah, I mean, I hope that it can resonate with people in a less specific way, right? Like
Sure.
I think people talk to me about picking up on like just anxiety in general or like, a safe space. That's what a lot of my stuff is about.
Mhm.
So like a person inside of like a giant uh structure or even like a person inside of a person or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, the things I'm thinking about lately, I'm gonna try and keep this short because I'm still like figuring it out.
Okay.
So I went to a Quaker school from in like elementary school. No, before that, like kindergarten to fourth grade or something.
Mhm.
Um, and like I'm not trying to. Quakers are great, but we did have to go to Quaker meeting once a week,
Uh-huh.
which is just sitting in silence
Mm.
until like theoretically, what the spirit moves someone to speak. But for me, it was just like unbelievable, crushing boredom. Like I couldn't believe because yeah, I was like 3 or whatever. I don't know, like way too young to understand what was happening. Not a religious person,
Mhm.
and so it was this like time, like forced meditation is what I'm sort of thinking of it as. Like I had to spend time with my brain, and at that time I didn't realize that that's like a hard thing for me to do because my brain is like wild and like like kind of trying to find things to be upset about.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's a thing I'm trying to explore a little bit in my newer stuff. And it's using kind of the vocabulary of what I've been doing, but the more like floral overgrown people, it's like
Mm.
to me, it's like this that feeling of being like stuck so much so that you've been like overtaken by something.
Because we have Haida and Bouquet, and were those
Yeah.
pieces that were kind of similar within that theme?
Yeah. That's
And
those
yeah,
are the most like explicitly about that.
yeah,
But just like not being willing to accept like a change or like a
yeah,
transition in your life.
yeah.
But for me, there's also like a huge comfort in it, which is
Mhm.
why I think, I think of those as like nice, approachable, like comfortable pieces.
Mhm.
But for me, that's like there's like a lot of shame in that too, because it's like the comfort is coming from not being like willing to sort of confront things that you really need to change or like like if you've been completely overgrown by roses, like yeah, maybe you look like a rose, but also like that's not you, you're basically rotting. You're the
Yeah,
thing growing the plant.
right.
Uh,
It looks
so
attractive, but there's also like kind of harm and suffocation within that.
yeah, it's like self sabotage. I don't know. Maybe this is the part I need to work on a little more. But for me, there's the process is about the things that I care about, but I want it. I'm all about like letting go of my art once it's in a
Mhm.
frame or like not in my house.
Yeah, definitely. We also have a piece from your Dead Tooth series, which I was
Oh
really
yeah,
excited about that we got because I followed you for a long time now, so I was so excited that we got you in the
thank
gallery.
you.
But
Um,
I'm wondering if you could tell us more about the Dead Tooth series, or it's a zine series.
yeah, yeah, that was a really kind of big deal for me because I let myself make images in a different way. It was like kind of what I was talking about before, where it's like, am I allowed to use collage? This was sort of like,
Oh, sure.
what if I just build things like kind of in a completely different order than I normally do?
Yeah.
I like really in that work. But it's about like something rotting inside you, like there is a problem that you need to exercise, but it's like it's hard. It's hard to let go of things that are really literally attached to you or whatever.
Mhm.
And this is just kind of like I wound up making this like kind of ridiculous narrative about these like things that are built to collect teeth that like help you get, you know. So there's like literal silly like comic book narrative stuff, but
Yeah.
it's about the like painful process of like maybe having to lose something, like forcing something out of you.
Yeah.
Um,
I also selfishly have a question for you. I was a very, very big fan of In the Dream House by Carmen Marie Machado. And
mhm.
so when I saw the collaboration with you and her, I was like delighted, and the cover art is so stunning. So I'm curious personally about how you created the cover and how that process was for you.
She basically came to me and was like, "Hey, can you make like almost this exact image?"
I
And
see.
I was like, "That's like what I do already, and I love that a lot." And like, obviously, she's like extremely talented, and I was sort of like trying not to freak out. But so I made this like kind of more, it was a little more noir. She was trying to reference that, you know, because like there's like a million things going on in that book, which is part
Yes.
of why it's like so fun to read
Yeah.
and also like completely crushing.
Yes.
Um, but we wound up pushing it just further. Like it was her and the designer, Kimberly Glider,
Mhm.
super talented. She did all the text. She like wound up even like changing the background color to that blue, which is like to me is like itself. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say it wasn't good before, but that made it for me. Like I saw it and was like, this is so smart, you know. While we honestly the only thing we really went back and forth about was the face at the inside of the like
Mhm.
tunnel.
Yeah.
She just really wanted to push it to like pulpy novel sort of look, and
Right.
but for a while it was too much of like a photo, so we yeah, I had to like kind of redraw it a few times to get it. That's drawn,
Yeah.
um,
Right.
at least partly, and so getting that balance was the only like push and pull, but it was also fun. I mean, and all of the references she was sending me were like, yeah, I mean that is such a cool idea, etc. Um, yeah, I feel so lucky to have worked on that. That's like one
Mhm.
of my favorite books I've read in a long time, and like they were really great to work with.
Yeah.
Kimberly did like amazing work. I've gotten to do other stuff with her too. In this case, it was like everybody is amazing, and I just wanted to like bring whatever I have up to the level that they're already working on.
Going back to just process in general, we have a very big BFA program here, a good studio program, and their final exhibition is this quarter. So for any BFA student watching who are currently tortured over their work, do you have any advice or guidance for them?
Um, Jeez, I had like I don't have a BFA, but my like final project for illustration, um, I wound up having to redo like half of it, and it was the most miserable experience. You know, like, and you're just stressed out, so like you're not sleeping, and you just want it to be good, and like I just wound up really getting in my head, but letting myself like just let go of the part. Like there was a piece I was working on so hard, and it wasn't coming together, and I think I knew it. And my
Hmm.
teachers eventually were just like, "This one isn't good. Like you just give up," you know, and like letting go of that whole thing and just accepting that I could like you got to trust yourself that you can make good images.
Yeah.
Like I made a thing I liked so much more and it turned out better. And I think like being trusting yourself that you can do good work. And
Mm.
if it's not working, it's like you're gonna do it better next time. But you don't have to be like devoted to this one version of the thing you're making. Like you'll make another good thing.
Yeah.
And then also the thing that I knew but wasn't keeping in mind at the time is like your career starts like after you do that, you know? Like I kept thinking of that as like the finish line, and it's if this isn't the best thing I've ever made, then like I'm done, you know? It's like you just the next thing you make is gonna be better.
Right.
Like,
Definitely.
and on, you know? So maybe my advice is like you have to take it really seriously. Like you want to do the best you can, but
Hmm.
this is just one part of your career, you know?
Yeah.
Like make it as good as you can, but you have to like I think stay loose and still like think about just making pictures and how it's fun. uh
Well, you already touched on the themes that you're working on now and kind of your mentality, but are there any projects that we can look forward to seeing from you?
I'm trying to think about what I'm allowed to talk about. uh I'm doing some variant covers right now for comics, which is like super fun for me. I don't know if there's that much crossover with the people who like my like collage work. I mean, it doesn't look totally dissimilar, but there's this comic Dead Boy Detective Sandman spinoff,
Mhm.
and a big, huge. I can't believe I didn't mention it before, but Dave McKean was such a big deal to me,
Oh yeah.
like because just collage and art, whatever.
Mhm.
So like getting to work on a book that like he worked on. It
Mhm.
just really feels like a big deal to me, and
Yeah,
whatever.
that's
So
awesome.
that's exciting to me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today,
Yeah,
Alex.
yeah. No, this was
Um,
great.
yeah, and I'm sure all of the visitors to the gallery will really appreciate this.